Hi, my name is Thomas Lundgren, and I'm really happy to be here on the Voices of the Future. And I do think the most important thing with that is, like my title, CEO, Chief Emotion Officer, is about the humanity. And it's about love, authenticity, and to find that most important thing around you that makes all the people feeling that they are respected, because there's too little respect in the world right now.
Absolutely delighted, privileged, and really happy to be here with Thomas, who's an old friend of mine, and I have seen his meteoric rise and his eccentric way of doing things, and he's built a great business. He's extremely successful. But what I see more with him is how he's balanced life with what he does, how he has built a team that keeps winning every single award every single year. And because he's created a happy environment, and I dare say that's the beginning of his conversation. But today we're going to be talking about his life, his journey, and more importantly, his journey into the future and what's important there. Thomas, wonderful to have you here. Thank you for being here. And thank you for all the inspiration over the years. It's been great. It's been great. I've seen you grow. As we go into the future, but before we go into the future, can we do a classic Hollywood, backstory? Tell us about little Thomas. Were you curious? Were you naughty? Were you great at school? Did you run away, get into trouble? What shaped you when you were a kid?
I think my mom shaped me, because my father died when I was 5.
Okay.
And it was me and my mom against the whole world.
Right.
And things she would do for me was, for example, give me pens and paper, and I would draw things, and everything I did was going to be, wow, this is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that a lot, at some stage you become pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But also I think it's about, I wanted her to recognize me and my teachers. And I remember I came into an art school when I was 19, 20, and the headmaster said to me, you haven't come here to learn to think. You haven't come here to learn to do advertising. You have come here to learn to think. And basically, I didn't understand what that meant at that time, but that's exactly what it was all about. It was about open your mind to other things than math or advertising, because advertising changed already at that stage in a tremendous speed.
Yeah. You speak about art. Why did you go for art rather than doing the usual physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, etc., etc.?
I actually thought I was going to be in the advertising business.
Right.
So that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But the school I got into was all about thinking, to become creative, to out of the box coming up with ideas, because what they always thought, and I think the same thing when you're acting or write books or whatever it is, creativity is one of the hardest points to, I don't know, are you born with it or do you actually learn? I think there's a mix of it.
It's a mix of it.
Because if you're getting pushed, so for example, when I did all these drawings I had on these papers, my mother bought them on big rolls because that was inexpensive. I was doing stories. And of course, what I think is the biggest strength I have is I'm dreaming a lot. And I think that's what we're doing. I was dreaming I was a rock star because I wanted to be a rock star. Sure. I was in cowboy movies was the big thing at that time. Yeah. I loved cowboy movies. So I was dreaming me away from my life, which wasn't that fantastic at that time, because me and my mom had nothing, as I said. And these dreams have shaped my future.
Yeah. Where I was going with this, because I know of this feature, this strength that you have. Most people think it's a weakness, but it's a strength in your case, and that is that you are dyslexic, as I understand it. And therefore, who cares about words? Let's draw pictures. Let's tell stories. Let's be creative. Let's dream. Let's go out there and make shit happen. That's different to, I'm going to get my A grades and stuff like that and move from there. Did that hold you back or accelerate you forward?
So I didn't know the word dyslexia wasn't there when I was a kid.
Okay.
So I couldn't spell and everything. What they did then, they put you in a special room to read more, which I don't think really is going to work.
Yes.
but there was no word for it.
Yeah.
And what it made, good and bad, it made me special. They took me out of the group into a room, which wasn't a really good thing, because when you're young, you don't want to be special.
Correct.
You want to be a part of the whole group.
Yeah.
So it kind of forced me to explain why I was in that room. And also I think it forced me to work harder on being good at something else, because again, I didn't know why I was different. Different is not a good thing. So I think my drawings became even more important, and the sport, because I was very good at sport at that time, because I was trying to find somewhere where I would fit in.
Yeah.
And the drawings was something that they always gave me a lot of, love. They gave me all this, telling me how good I was, etc. And when you're told as a kid you're good at something, you would do more of it.
Sure. Fast forward into your business life, and I know you had a sort of meandering career. Can you just give us a little bit of an idea of how you came here and how you ended up starting what you're doing today?
So as a kid, as I said, my mom and me didn't have very much. And I was always sitting outside the house, looking over a little hill, not a big, small hill, because on the other side of that place were, the new buildings they were new. My place was moldy where we lived. These houses was new. They looked fantastic. They had 2 parents. My father was dead, you remember? They had a cat and a dog, most probably. And they had a stereo.
Yeah.
And my dream was to fit into that part. That was the world I wanted to do. But then when I was dreaming, it wasn't like my future is in Sweden. My future was always somewhere out in the world. Maybe it was actually to be an ice hockey professional, because I played ice hockey, and at that time that was in Canada.
Yeah.
So that probably was the dream at that moment, but it was always outside Sweden.
Yeah.
And when I got fired from my ice hockey, and I wasn't that sad, which you can discuss why, if I really pushed myself to get fired actually, because I had no problem with it. Immediately I looked for a job, and I found this job in Saudi. And I thought, with that company, I can go to Australia, because that was my dream.
Right.
I thought my future was in Australia.
And
so that's how I ended up, and then I never left the Middle East.
Yes, yeah. While all of this was going on, you mentioned dreaming, you mentioned love, you mentioned happiness. Let's also talk about success versus all of these things, and how did it all gel together for you?
So of course, success in my mind as a kid was happiness. That's the whole point. I will find my happiness in my success, and of course that's not how it works. But that was a recipe. I'm going to be successful. I'm successful whatever that was. If that was ice hockey, or if that was working in furniture, or if that was in advertising, I'm going to be happy. And it, of course, does have nothing to do with each other.
It's very interesting you say that, because I think this whole philosophy, we get on a treadmill of life, and there's the worker bees, and you get your A's, you get to universities, do jobs, become successful, earn money, get married, 2.2 kids, and that's it. That's life, and that's success. I haven't lived that. I dare say you haven't lived that. But I love the connection that you're making with happiness, because so many people I speak to are quite successful but not happy, and I think that disconnect is something that you seem to be bridging. What does happiness mean to you? What are the elements that are around you that make you happy?
Don't think I'm happy all the time, because that's not how it works.
I know. Of course not.
It's like they're trying to get balance, and the only thing you can get after you get balance is get off balance again.
Yeah.
So when you think or feel you have found it, then it's going to be elusive and disappear again.
Yeah.
So no, but really, I think it's like having employees. It's the same thing like having children, I think. So we all want to, as I said before, we want to belong together. We want to belong into a tribe or something, and that's a big part of the happiness.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that I call it, which is really is to get your environment right, and the environment can be your company. I think that's very important. It's your family, it's your friends, and we take a lot of these ones for granted. So if you start with a company and you're talking about getting that environment right, I think one of the biggest words or the biggest superpowers you have as a leader or a manager, depending on what level you are, is to be your authentic self.
Yeah.
And so people in your company feel supportive,
Yeah.
they feel respect, they feel that they can come to you about anything. Most of all, like when we had COVID, they feel that you're there to take care of them.
Sure.
We're going to do the best we can.
Yeah.
There's no difference in the family. Your children, they want exactly the same thing. At least I did it as a kid. I have 3 daughters, and they want the respect from you. They want to be, but they also want you to be there when they need help.
Yeah.
And they hear everything you say,
Yeah.
even if you don't think they do that, especially up to a certain age. It's the same thing with the employees. They hear everything. If you say don't smoke, for example, to your children, and then you go behind the corner and smoking, I mean, hello.
Yeah, exactly. You've lost
They
your
know.
authenticity.
Yeah. It's gone.
Yeah. So you have built a beautiful tribe here. You have won every single award that you can think of. I saw the shelf behind your office, and the shelf doesn't have any more space. I noticed the fact that there were more awards than the shelf space, and even though there's a huge showroom. What's that secret? What's that secret sauce that you've got here?
So, of course, when I started this company, or when I was running around here in 93 to 95 to actually find the money to do my dream, one of the things that I learned at that time was I read a book. I saw the book and I just opened it, and out of it came just this whole thing about happiness. And I thought, that just makes perfect sense. If your staff is happy, they will do a much better job, which will make the customers happy, which will make the company successful, which will make me happy.
Yeah.
And people laughing at me with this whole thing about happiness. And I don't understand still why companies or leaders have such a it's so hard to understand that if people, they go to work every day, they do a lot of hours at work, me too. And if you're doing that just for the sake of money is secondary. They will come if you're doing the right thing and you're happy. I think they belong together.
Yeah.
I don't think you can tell people, follow your happiness, you're going to be successful. No, it doesn't work that way. It's a lot of hard work. It's 24/7. It's a hardship, etc. You don't get successful because you are looking for what you're happy.
Sure.
That's not working. But you can, whatever you do, if you can be happy with what you do and you work really hard, that's the success.
Yeah.
And that's why you just said, most people are not happy. It doesn't matter how much money they make or how much success they have.
Yeah.
They are going home and they are not happy.
Indeed. You know, we are talking about voices of the future. We're now projecting ourselves in the future. And as you saw, and as I was showing you things, there's a lot of technology in there. There's a lot of AI in there. There's a lot of biotech in there, and the future tech and stuff like that. My thesis is that anything that can be digitized will be, because it'll be 1,000,000 times faster and 1,000,000 times cheaper. But anything and everything that cannot be digitized, love, harmony, happiness, compassion, heart, soul, spirit, common sense, critical thinking, creativity, imagination, and I can go on, they will all be 1,000,000 times more valuable. So, and to me, this sounds really, really obvious. I think to you it sounds obvious, but our schools aren't like that. Our workplaces aren't like that. What do we need to do as we look into the future to digitization? Yes, but all of these human attributes and values to build our future.
You just said the word. You need to make it more human.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, AI, all these things are going to take over.
Yeah.
Anything it can take over.
Yeah.
But in the end, what it can't take over, and even if you're going to have a nice voice or whatever it is, and we can call, maybe we get AI to become human one day, whatever that means, because we have no idea what it means today.
Yeah.
The interaction between people must be with respect. It must be that we treat each other with respect. The human part of that one is to be authentic. It's to show when you are sad. It is to ask for help, etc. If you don't have that in your company or whatever you do, movie making, music. I'm pretty sure that music can be, all the songs will be written soon. You don't need someone to write them. But who is going to actually sing them? Yeah. That's the whole part of the human part where you can touch and feel the person, because that's where you cry. It's a human part that makes us feel things.
Yeah. The metaphor I use is, to me, AI and technology is a little bit like a horse. It's bigger than you, stronger than you, it's faster than you, but you ride it. Give it an apple, keep it happy, and you ride it. And I think we need to maintain that balance, in the sense that AI should not be unbridled growth of AI, that we lose, without any guardrails, that we lose control. And it's a 50-50 right now. Elon Musk is on one side, Mark Zuckerberg is on the other side. Elon Musk is saying, let's control this stuff. While Mark Zuckerberg, no, we'll figure shit out. I'm of the opinion that I think we need to control this. Like nuclear fission, we need to control this. Because 80 years ago, we created the nuclear bomb, and it's only happened twice, and never again. I think we need to find a way to control AI, that we can ride it rather than it riding us. Thoughts?
So I think you're absolutely correct with saying, but think about something so simple in my company like customer service. It's probably 10 times more. We can have no people employed. It's the whole customer service can be by AI in soon. But where is the human touch?
Correct.
So where are we going to say, no, here we're not going to use it, because you want to speak to human. When you're angry,
That's true.
when you want to get off your chest that you are actually, this is wrong, and then you have a voice who says, we hear you, and that's where you need the human interaction.
Sure.
And that's, I think, where we need to take that decisions. Sure. Where is it not effectively perfect to do it? When it comes to, we could have one employee handling the AI and handling all the customer requests, or we actually have humans to speak to. Where is it where you just says, no, in my company we have humans to speak to about this?
Right. And I think that will differentiate you going forward, because funnily enough, even to this day, I go to my reception guy and I speak to him and I get a taxi. I can get a Kareem, but I actually said to her, and my friend, she said, why don't you just order? And I said, I actually enjoy the conversation. I talk to the guy in the taxi and the Uber. And I think that human connection, maybe I'm old school, but I think it's
going to be more and more important. Think about when that car don't have a driver anymore.
Yeah.
Well, who are you going to talk to then?
Absolutely.
I mean, you could probably live a whole day without talking to someone.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I think that once again, find that balance with the human part within your company, but also to your customer. Yeah. There is a balance there. Yeah. I mean, when my delivery team comes, they deliver it and they actually speak to you. Yeah. They got a gift here. There was one of our customers recently. He wanted a photo with them just to send to us and say thank you, because they were talking to him.
Yeah.
Because already now we're talking less and less to each other.
Indeed. As a futurist, one of my first slides that I present out there, I ask the question to the audience is, what do you think is the most important thing that will define the future? And I usually get the usual answer of AI and blockchain and biotech and this, that, and the other. Actually, I said no. In my view, personally, the future is going to be defined by trust, underpinned by truth and ethics. That trifecta of trust, truth, ethics, transparency is where the future is going to be, because the trust deficit is getting bigger and bigger. We don't trust our organizations, we don't trust our governments, we don't trust our leaders, we don't trust. No. And therefore, I mean, even simple technology, a transaction in technology, a MasterCard or a Visa, when we're doing, it's about trust. You put the money in, you do something, and you know it will happen. What is your view in terms of trust as a leadership tool, as a developmental thing in the future? Where does trust sit in your life?
So that's trust comes to the word respect. Without trust, you can't have respect. And that's one of the problems we have in the world in general right now. So if you don't have that human factor of that humans, wherever that is in my company, so they speak to you you can feel the whole thing, and the future, I think, is the same thing. There's a balance, of course. It is. And that trust that you get, that you actually have someone who looks at you and say, I can hear, I can feel that you have a problem. I feel it.
Yeah.
You know, that gives respect. And then suddenly you can have a dialogue instead of just a monologue when someone screams at somebody because they are angry. And I think that's what we're missing in the world in general right now. There's nobody listening.
Sure.
Everybody's just screaming at each other. And so you can't listen if you're not interested to listen.
Sure.
But you maybe can get someone to listen if they respect you.
And behind that is empathy. Behind that is the ability to be able to connect, and customer service is embedded in empathy because you can relate to people like that. You have young daughters, and talking about the future of education and the future of learning, very closely linked to the fact that tech is fine, but here's humanity. Do you think our schooling system today addresses and prepares us for the future?
I go to Harvard every year because I never went to school as a kid.
Yeah.
I don't think this school, first of all, know what they are training our youth for, because we don't know what the future looks like. That's number one problem.
Sure.
Number two is that if you look back to my country, Sweden was in the forefront of education when I was young. And today, as probably is in the furthest back in the classroom, is Sweden right now.
Okay.
And because there is no respect for teachers. And I'm not talking about the kids now. I'm talking about the whole society looks at it. So what is the future when you're looking at your school system? How are you going to train someone for a future you don't know how it looks like? If you don't, first of all, having the teachers and the systems, your respect for them and the best and brightest to do it. Because the best and brightest must be there to guide them. And today, when you're paid nothing, how can you have the best, the brightest to be taking care of the school?
But I think it's also the structure, expectation from parents, fear of failure, because failure doesn't. I mean, as a philosophy in our part of the world, in the Middle East and India and the parts of, failure is not an option. I mean, it's like you have to succeed in school, you've got to get A's, you've got to do all sorts of stuff. So I have actually a fun story. I call it the 5 F's of failure. You have to fail fast, fail frequently, fail frugally, failure is not fatal, and fail forward, fail and move forward. And failure, sixth F, failure is a good F word. So when I want to demystify failure. Have you had spectacular failures in your life that you can share and what you learned and move forward from there?
Oh, we have made more failures at this company than I think we have done successes.
Yeah, of course.
And I think because that's where you learn.
Yeah, I mean, you swing,
really,
and it's the number of times you miss. You
learn more from your failures than you learn from your successes.
Yeah.
Successes makes you also lazy.
Arrogant,
absolutely. And you think you're the best on planet Earth. I had a period like that.
Yeah.
Where I thought everything I touched was just working, and it did just. But that wasn't because it was because I was at the right place at the right time at the right moment, and things just fell into line. You know, the stars fell into line.
Yeah.
Most of the time, we have done gazillion of mistakes, and that's. I think the biggest thing with our culture is that everyone in my company, because I've been with me most of them over 20 years, and that's not always good.
Yeah.
Because you need also young blood. You need a good mix of this. So being the greatest place in the work to work for is not always perfect. I mean, you need to find a balance. You know, you need young people who is challenging. You need to have diversity. You need, and people they get a little bit complacent.
Sure.
So you need to find a good turbulence. But failures, something that we never had to have the problem with in this company is to try and 2 out of 5 is success in the best case, or 1. And the rest are failures.
Yeah. So, I mean, I even when I'm sitting on boards and I'm advising them, I have 2 things. I have a failure list and a no list. What are the things you have said no to in the last 12 months? And I get the board to write down on a sheet of paper and sort of, because I feel that organizations have, humans have an immune system. And anything coming from outside, the immune system goes and blocks it and protects you. So people like me coming in, I am the virus coming from outside. So the corporate immune system blocks me almost immediately. So how do we give immunosuppressants? How do we create all of that? And one of the questions I said, okay, what did you say no to last year? Because that will show us in your organization what your immune system looks like. Did you say no because, we don't have the budget, or the boss won't buy it, or we've never done this before? What were the reasons you said no? And the no list is actually stronger than the yes list. And I put this whole thing together to basically, get the pulse of an organization, what they're saying no to. And the results, you should actually try in one of your next management meetings. What did we say no to in the last 3 months? And then just put little post-it notes on the wall and suddenly you have 30, 40 no's, of which I promise you around 25% should have been a yes.
But the easiest thing is to say no, actually.
I know.
It's like you said, it's this whole system about just saying no. It's much easier than to actually say yes.
Yeah.
So you remember Apple and Steve, apparently he as a person, I mean, his greatest thing was saying no to things that, because let's concentrate on what really matters. Mm-hmm. But in the same time, if you say no all the time, it's like saying no to your children all the time, then your guys, women, men around you, they will stop coming with ideas.
Yeah.
So how do you find that balance? I think it's really from business to business. And when people really have this drive for something, okay, prove it.
Jeff Bezos had in the early 2000s a concept, a strategy called the institutional yes. You had to say yes to every idea that comes through. And basically what he was trying to do, and if you said no to something, you have to put it on the notice board and you say, this guy's a jerk, he's saying no to things. So the whole mindset started shifting from a no to a yes. And there was this one guy who kept on coming back and he said, we should have a web service. And he said, go away, we're in the e-commerce business. Why do you want a web service? No, he'd come back every time, but nobody could say no to him. Then once somebody said once that, why don't you go in and get a business plan and we'll invest in it and you'll start a web service. And that was the beginning of Amazon Web Services, which had an 85 to 90% margins, because all he said was there's so much spare capacity sitting there, nobody is using it. So sometimes the biggest success are the ones that is just not staring you in the face. And that's what made Amazon, because the culture at that point in time is a yes culture. One of the things that I encounter a lot is one of the data points that I throw out there, and with your company, if you were to say, come and speak to my team, one of the key questions I would put out there is that 70 to 80% of the jobs in the year 2030 do not exist today. So you, ladies and gentlemen, all of you sitting here, 70% of you will be doing a different job in 6 years' time.
That's true.
Now, that jump, that transition, what kind of leaders do we need? What kind of development do we need? What kind of mindset shift do we need? You as a leader, when you look at something like this, you've built a great company. What do you feel? I mean, what do you feel that needs to be done to make sure that they get there in 2030?
What we do is that every time we're talking about things in meetings or in big meetings, town hall meetings, etc., is that I'm trying to get everybody to understand that I have not figured out the future. Nobody figured out the future.
Yeah.
But what each person needs to do is to figure out what you need to learn today for the near new future, because we can see, you can see over that little hill I talked about.
Yeah.
And it's not someone who's going to give it to you.
Right.
If you want to be in that place, in that job, in that position you are, you need yourself figure out how do you train yourself to that next, because otherwise somebody is going to come running from the back who has much better education, much better views about I can change, because change is scary. And most people don't want change.
Sure.
I love change.
I love change, absolutely.
Yeah. But happiness and change, by the way, you can't have change everywhere, but that's chaos. You need to figure out where do you have stability.
Yeah.
So my stability is like my home. I want stability there, because if I have change at the time at work, and then change at home is chaos. So you need to have a safe place somewhere to have change.
Yeah, true. You're a CEO. Most people would have a chief executive officer, but you have a different explanation for your title.
Chief Emotional Officer.
What are those emotions that you're inspiring?
Back to what we talked about before, being authentic.
Yeah.
And I think we start just with authentic, and then you have, of course, if you're authentic and technically speaking, cry. If you have to cry, I mean, you can. This is like looking at a movie. But if you can feel what you feel, even when you're angry, you can feel all these things. Emotions is 10 times stronger when you're going to get something done. If you're going to move a mountain or whatever it is, emotions is much stronger than having a rule book or having, I'm telling you, you have to go from X to Y, Z, you know? Emotions is what rules us.
True. And the highest level of emotion and the highest vibration of emotion is love. How do you create love? How do you build love? Both at home, I think it's very natural. But
is it?
True.
I'm not so sure.
Not so sure. You're right. Yeah, you're right.
I think we take things for granted. So
True.
love is like, if I'm nice to you, you're nice to me. It doesn't work that way. Love is something that comes back again to respect.
Yeah.
You know, how you behave, what you do. And the hardest thing in the world is saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And how many CEOs can say, or do say, I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Or, listen, I need to talk to you. I was a jerk yesterday.
Yeah.
People don't do that.
Yeah.
So love is not being the best place to work. Some people think it's something like drinking coffee free of charge and having cookies on Fridays or whatever it is, or have a ballroom, or I don't know what they did on Google. You remember that? No, it is really about respect, I think. And love is the ultimate word. So that's one of our 4 core values. If you don't love yourself, if you don't love where you work, you cannot do amazing things. It's impossible. But love is not just this hanky-panky, I look at you feeling in love. Love comes out of the words of respect, empathy, authenticity. Without that, you don't have love.
That's true.
And you must love yourself before you can love somebody else.
This is true, and not always easy, because I think
we don't love ourselves always. So
right.
Sometimes when we're angry at other people, it's actually we're angry at ourselves.
Yeah, sometimes I struggle with that too. It's interesting. Thomas, you and I can keep yakking away forever, but before we do that, let's get on in a time capsule, in a time machine. And we go there and we do the whole thing, and beam me up, Scotty, and we've gone out there in the time machine in the year of your 100th birthday. And so we're there with you. What are we celebrating? Who's around you? What do you see outside the window? How do you feel?
I hope I celebrate a family business that I can sit and watch and being proud of, that everybody's basically caring for each other. And the newer younger generations have taken over, and then probably one more generation taking over. But it's the same values. I'm not even sure we're selling furniture. I don't know if furniture is actually going to be sold at that time, or candles. So maybe you make them at home in one of these machines, I have no
3D
idea.
printed furniture.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be 3D printing candles. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But whatever that company, that the one have become at that stage, that everyone who works there are respectful to each other and really trying to make whatever that is we're doing at the best for each other. I think that's what's so beautiful with Dubai, when Sheikh Mohammed always says this thing about we working for the future of the next generation. And I hope they do the same thing. It's next generation after that.
Yeah, and they take it, push it forward. We are talking about the voices of the future, and you as a voice of the future. So what's your message then? Is your message that we stay constant with our values over the next 30, 40, 50 years? And is that the secret of the future? Or what?
I very clear what I think, and that is we need to learn to open our heart to listen more. When I was young, I didn't listen very much. I talked much more than I listened. And listening is something you need to learn to do. And if we're going to have less wars, if we're going to have less fights, if we're going to have more successful companies, whatever it is, and most of love, you need to listen more.
Yeah.
And the older I get, it becomes very clear that if I had started to listen much earlier in life, I probably would be a much more successful and happy person than I am today.
And listening is at different dimensions. You can listen through your ears, you can listen with your heart, you can listen through your eyes, your ambient environment.
More important, listening and try to understand what the other person is trying to tell you.
Empathetic listening is what I was going to get to. We have a very interesting guest in the book, Rob Capello, and he and I have worked. He's a conductor of the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, and he talks about the future of listening and how underrated that is as a leadership skill, which is something very simple as listening. And he uses the metaphor of an orchestra to be like a leadership space, and I'm using that as part of my book. To be able to sort of say people like you are the maestros going and I'm helping to create that symphony and then pulling it together.
But think about, you remember I wanted to be a rock star.
Yeah.
And we play rock in a way. Think about playing jazz. And you are 3, 4 or 5 and you're just jamming away.
Yeah.
That's all about listening.
Yes.
And I remember Frank Zappa saying a beautiful thing. He said, when I woke up, someone asked him, why are you such an amazing guitarist? And he said, I don't know if I am really. I just woke up there and I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't do like most of them. I have a plan already. I have, practicing it.
Yeah.
No, I just woke up there and the mood I am in at that moment with all the things happening around me and the feeling makes me do the solo I do. And I think that was amazing chefs in restaurants, musicians, even leaders does sometimes, because things are changing very fast and you need to have that listening to, we need to change or we need to tweak this a little bit or, and I think listening because of that is more important than ever, because you can't have your own solo suddenly at the same time as a drummer has a solo with it. It's kind of, it's maybe interesting, but it's probably not very good music.
And funnily enough, when I was doing this work together with Rob, he very calmly and nonchalantly said, music develops empathy. And I said, really? How? I hadn't connected it. And he said, if you're sitting in an orchestra, and again he gave the example, he said, we have to listen to each other. We know where we need to go in and come out. You mentioned jazz, and that's a really good example. And he said that ability to go in and out and to connect, doesn't matter you've had a fight or you had whatever, but when you're there, when you're performing, you're listening and connecting and empathizing. And he said, and that is why music is such a great thing. I actually recommend that banks and when I talk about the future of jobs and so on, hire musicians and teachers. Because I said musicians have empathy and connection, and that's what you need in the future. Stop hiring bankers. I said hire social scientists and anthropologists and musicians and teachers. And everybody was saying, this guy's gone nuts. I said, but this is how the world is changing, because we need to be able to understand that human flow.
And by the way, look at the movie, take away the sound. It's not scary, it's not romantic, it's nothing. You put on the music, and you look at Bambi, and you are crying. Because it's emotions when the music fits perfectly into the pictures.
Thomas, as we end, is there anything that we may have missed? I know we've covered a lot. You've got a sheet of paper in front of you. Have you missed anything? Is there a message, maybe a message in a bottle, that one thing that we need to do that'll help us position ourselves and be happy in the future? Because you've spoken about the future of happiness today. And to me, that is very, very critical.
So if you say the sentence that get the environment right, when I'm talking about getting the environment right, it's in a company, but it is also at home. It is the environment we're living in, because otherwise we have no planet for our future generations. So the whole thing about this environment is a word I'm trying to figure out right now, because the environment is all the things that comes to, when we speak about love, anything we do, respect, everything, all that affects that environment.
Is it energy?
It's all about energy. You feel energy when you speak to people.
Consciousness.
I mean, energy is everything.
Yeah.
It's. You can have positive or negative energy. You have energy parasites, for example, who just sucks it out of you.
They absolutely. Yeah.
And you have people who just gives you energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where you need friends for example, the people that gives you energy, for example, when you are really tired. So environment, you need to get the environment right around yourself,
Right.
in your company, at home, your family, your kids, and the world.
Thomas, thank you very much indeed. It's been an absolute pleasure, and you're an absolute rock star. You actually are a rock star. You keep saying.
I would love to be.
No, but you are. But you're a different kind of rock star. There are different types of rock stars, and I think you're rocking many people's lives, and it's just been it's been amazing. Been talking to Thomas about being a rock star, but more about happiness, love, humanity, and have you noticed that we hardly spoke about technology as we got into the future? And I think that is what Voices of the Future is about, is to have different voices sharing different ideas and different thoughts. Thomas asked me earlier on, so what am I going to talk about as far as the future is concerned? Actually, he's spoken about the most important thing, and that's humanity. That's about us, because tech will happen, society will shift. But as human beings, we need to be able to respond to that and to be able to reach that. And he is a wonderful voice for the future. And we wish him well and hope his ideas of the future of happiness can infect all of us, and we are also happy. So, on the Voices of the Future, Thomas.
Thank you.
Thank you.